The quiet power of detachment. The evening walk. As the sun disappeared behind the rooftops of Frankfurt, Arthur Schopenhauer continued his evening walk. The streets slowly became quieter. Shops closed. Carriages rolled past with softer sounds. Schopenhauer often preferred these hours. The world seemed calmer. But even during these peaceful walks, he observed the same patterns of human behavior everywhere. People arguing loudly about subjects they barely understood. Men competing for status in conversations. Crowds repeating opinions they had never examined. To many philosophers, this behavior was frustrating. To Schopenhauer, it was expected. Because he believed something deeply unsettling about human nature. Most people are guided more by impulse than by reason. And once you accept this truth, dealing with foolish people becomes far easier. Rule 8. Intelligent people observe before they speak. One of the biggest mistakes intelligent people make is assuming everyone values reason. They enter conversations expecting logical exchange. But Schopenhauer warned that most discussions are not intellectual, they are emotional. People talk to display identity, to gain approval, to demonstrate belonging within a group. So the intelligent person learns a powerful habit: observation. Instead of jumping into debates immediately, they watch. They study the personalities in the room. They notice who listens, who interrupts, who seeks understanding, and who only seeks attention. Once this pattern becomes clear, the intelligent person knows exactly how much energy to invest. Sometimes the answer is none at all. Story: The Silent Student. At a university lecture hall, a group of students argued passionately about philosophy. Voices rose, ideas clashed. Everyone wanted to prove themselves intelligent. But in the back row sat a quiet student who rarely spoke. He listened carefully to every argument. He noticed something the others missed. The loudest voices were not presenting the strongest ideas. They were simply presenting them with the most confidence. Weeks later, during a final discussion, the professor asked the silent student to share his thoughts. When he spoke, the entire room fell quiet, because he had spent weeks observing the weaknesses in everyone's arguments, and with a few calm sentences, he dismantled them effortlessly. The lesson was simple: the mind that listens first speaks with far greater power. Why noise often wins. Schopenhauer understood a frustrating reality about society. Noise attracts attention. Calm reasoning does not. This creates a dangerous illusion. People assume the loudest voice is the most confident, and confidence is often mistaken for intelligence. But true intelligence rarely needs to shout. It does not rely on emotional spectacle. It relies on clarity, and clarity rarely rushes. Rule 9. Intelligent people accept human imperfection. Another reason intelligent people suffer frustration is unrealistic expectation. They expect others to behave rationally, but Schopenhauer believed this expectation leads to constant disappointment. Human beings are not perfectly rational creatures. They are emotional, biased, influenced by pride, fear, and social pressure. Once you accept this reality, foolish behavior stops feeling shocking. It becomes predictable. And predictability is powerful, because when you can predict irrational behavior, you can avoid being affected by it. Story: The Businessman's Realization. A successful businessman once complained to a mentor. "I cannot understand people," he said. "They make irrational decisions constantly. They ignore obvious solutions. They argue over nonsense." The mentor smiled. "You are expecting people to behave like machines," he replied. "But people are not machines. They are emotional creatures who sometimes think logically." The businessman paused. That sentence changed everything. Instead of becoming frustrated with human behavior, he began anticipating it. And once he did, dealing with difficult people became much easier. The power of psychological distance. Schopenhauer believed the most effective way to deal with foolish people was psychological distance. This does not mean arrogance, it means emotional independence. Imagine someone insulting you during an argument. If you react emotionally, they gain control of the situation. But if you remain calm, the insult loses power. Psychological distance creates a protective barrier. The foolish person may shout, mock, or provoke, but their words cannot penetrate the calm mind, because the intelligent person no longer treats every opinion as important. Rule 10. Intelligent people do not take everything personally. Many foolish arguments escalate because someone feels personally attacked, but intelligent people learn a powerful perspective. Most criticism says more about the speaker than the target. When someone insults you during a debate, they often reveal frustration with their own inability to defend their ideas. Instead of responding emotionally, the intelligent person simply recognizes this. And once you see the insecurity behind the attack, it becomes difficult to feel offended. You begin to see the situation with almost scientific curiosity. Story, the writer and the critic. A famous writer once received a harsh letter from a critic. The letter mocked his work and called it pretentious nonsense. At first, the writer felt anger, but then he remembered something important. The critic had written only one book in his life, and that book had failed completely. Suddenly, the criticism felt different, not threatening, but revealing. The writer calmly folded the letter and returned to his work. Because intelligent people eventually learn something liberating. Not every opinion deserves emotional reaction. The strength of intellectual detachment. Schopenhauer admired individuals who could detach themselves from the chaos of public opinion, people who maintained independent thought even when surrounded by noise. This detachment creates extraordinary mental freedom. You no longer feel obligated to respond to every claim. You no longer feel compelled to prove yourself. And without that pressure, the mind becomes calmer, sharper, more creative. Why intelligent people often appear quiet. Many people mistake quiet individuals for passive ones, but Schopenhauer believed silence often hides deep thought. The quiet person in the room may simply be evaluating whether the conversation is worth joining, because intelligent people know something that talkative people often forget. Words cannot be taken back, silence can. So they speak carefully, and when they finally speak, their words carry weight. Story, the general's strategy. A military general once listened quietly while his officers argued over battle strategies. Each officer passionately defended their plan. The discussion became heated, but the general remained silent. After an hour, he finally spoke. He calmly summarized every argument presented. Then he pointed out the single weakness that all plans shared. Within minutes, the room understood the real problem, and the solution became obvious. The officers were stunned. "How did you see it so clearly?" one asked. The general replied, "Because while you were arguing, I was thinking." The final philosophy. Schopenhauer believed intelligence ultimately leads to one profound realization. You cannot control the behavior of foolish people, but you can control your reaction. This simple truth changes everything. It transforms frustration into observation, anger into patience, conflict into distance. And once you reach this mindset, foolish behavior loses its power over you. The final lesson ahead. But there is still one final insight that Schopenhauer believed separates wise individuals from merely intelligent ones. A lesson about peace, about independence, and about why the greatest minds often choose solitude over endless debate.